just a quick video, how to pick a career or business that fits you and pays the bills. And specifically, this is going to be more relevant for those of you who care about the environment, social justice, and those kind of things. So number one is clarify your values. Just list your values. I'll just tell you mine. So, I value independent thinking. I value any civilization structure that enhances life. And I'm gonna frame that a little bit in a weird way. I'm just gonna explain it and say, we live in a time where there's so much assumed that the way that our life and our civilization is structured can't really be changed. And there's so many things that can be changed. So I value anything that gets us closer to making those fundamental changes in our civilization that enhances life individually and collectively. So get really clear on your values. That may seem obvious, but rarely do I find that people actually take the time to do that. They just kind of wing it. And when it comes to, picking the kind of work that you're going to do, or the next job that you're going to apply for, or the next kind of business you're going to go into, or the next business you're going to start, you really need to front load some of your, put more energy into figuring out what those specifically are for you. And they're going to constantly evolve. So that's number one. Number two is, and again, this is simple stuff, like just inventory your skills and your strengths. Like for example, I suck at follow through. I've been trying to write a book for 20 years, and it's such a long and intense project that's pretty solo that I've failed all those times. But I'm super good at getting things started, managing people, synthesizing problems. One of my buddies that I work with, he calls me like a creative solution master. If there's a solution that needs to be found, I can figure it out. I've got creative solutions out the wazoo. But if you try to sit me down in a room and get me to focus on a single task and just do repetitive thing over and over and over again, I suck at it. Now that's not to say that I won't get any better at it over time, but that's also to say don't get stuck in this trap of self-improvement where you're trying to change things fundamental about yourself. Instead, leverage your strengths, leverage your skills, and then let other people do the stuff that you're really not good at. That's the way nature works, and it's the way civilizations work. And civilizations are a product of nature on one level. So map those out and write those down. Write down your values, write down your skills. Okay, number three is you gotta brainstorm. So this is another thing that people don't do enough of. So I recently did a 2-year long construction project, remodeled a house, created another rental unit, and then I sold it. And I put all my energy into that. That's from the advice of the Gary Keller book, The One Thing, which is, I highly recommend that. Not 100%, but 99% I think he's got it right. The basic idea of the book, you don't have to read it. The basic idea of the book is, it's helpful if you want to get some more belief behind it. Just ask yourself the question every day, every week, every hour. What's the one thing I can do right now, or today, or this week, or this month, to make everything else in my life easier or unnecessary? But brainstorm 50 ideas. Don't just do the first. This is what a big problem I find most of the people do when they're deciding on anything, especially new business ideas. They just go with the first thing that comes to mind, or the first thing that you get excited about. And then 5 days later, you're no longer excited about it. And then you add another thing, and then there's a bouncing around that happens. That especially happens to creative types such as myself. But come up with a really long list. You can use AI to help you, but it's really helpful if you come up with all these 50 ideas. You can use AI, but then flesh them out yourself. If you're going to use AI, then get 500 ideas and then narrow it down to 50 that you really resonate with. Okay, so spend a lot more energy on coming up with those ideas. This has got to be a short one because I don't have very long in the car today. And then now I'm going to talk a little bit about Elon Musk's strategy. Whatever you think about Elon Musk, he's a brilliant businessman. I have a love-hate relationship with him. What was I going to say? He has like a 5-step system. I think I'll get most of them, but the most important one is that always number one, once you get on one of these ideas, let's say you're going to choose one, first thing you do is you got to make sure that there's enough people out there. So then there's I'm sure you might have seen the classic circle where you match your skills, your passion, your desire, and the market demand. So you got to find that sweet spot in the middle. You've heard that for years. So if you have, if it's new to you, do that. That's important. And then the other thing is making sure that in that market part that you're solving a real pain that people have, not something that you've imagined as a pain that actually other people have. Because especially when you care about the environment, nature's not your client. Humans are nature. Humans who care about nature probably should be your client. Or even just humans who have a problem and you solving that problem happens to help nature in the process. That's another great way to do it. But humans with pain are your job. That's the business that you're going into, and you're just trying to align your natural skills and talents and values and passions into that, solving that pain. That's the fundamental reason that the fundamental way we can create a business and a life that pays the bills and also gives us meaning and purpose in life. Just a quick story about me. I was a yoga teacher 25 years ago. And it just didn't work for me anymore because it was like kind of a glorified exercise class, and I felt like I was just entertaining wealthy women who had extra time during the day, and it wasn't right for me. Now, that's not the only way to do it. That was whatever it was, but I needed to get out of that, and I needed to get more in with my hands because I loved working with my hands. I'm good with working with my hands, solving problems. I'm good with that, and really big picture stuff. So I got back into construction, and it combined a lot of those elements. So I did that for 25 years. And now I'm in my next phase where construction's not really working for me anymore, and I have to move more into a teaching and a mentoring phase. Approaching, I got 3 years before my 60th birthday. So that's the time in life that I'm in. So my passion's changed, so it evolved is kind of the point of that. So with the Elon Musk thing, the thing to do after you've picked this problem that you're going to solve, and it's good to pick like 3. So another wonderful book that I mention often is Design Your Life. Those are 2 Stanford professors. And it's their approach is very good. Pick like 3 different pathways, and then you map out each one, and then you pick one. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to go through to the last principle. The last principle is to make mistakes or make products, make services, start jobs. Do it really fast and then quit. Fast and quit. Fast and quit. So I don't mean quit, but I mean don't pour a year of investment into one project only to realize that it's either not going to work or you don't like the job or whatever. But just try a job. If you don't like it after, give it a week. If you don't like it after a week, bail. Just really get into the speed of it. That's sort of the genius of Elon Musk. One of the geniuses. He has a bunch of flaws, so don't get all Elon Musk anti on me because I do not love he does a lot of stupid shit. But he's really a genius, and this is a big teaching that I try to bring to people. Just because you don't like one part of a person, don't throw out the rest of the good stuff that they do. That's too much binary thinking in our, in the world, and especially when you get on the extremes of ideological viewpoints, whether they be conservative or liberal. Like everybody gets super ideological and closed down and doesn't listen to the broader wisdom that's available when you embrace the totality of what's around you. So Elon Musk, question the steps, question the assumptions that you're making about what it needs to do this thing. So my next big move is to create a podcast. So I've created a podcast. It's been, I've had a few successful episodes, but it's been on the back burner since my last big investment project. So now I'm looking at like, what are the steps that I can eliminate so that I can go straight to having a successful podcast. So I don't know what those are yet, but that's the inquiry that I'm in. Then the next thing is once you've done that, is to figure out what the assumptions that I have that I think of the things that are required. That's number one. Number two is to figure out what steps you can eliminate. So I kind of said those a little bit in reverse order. So number one, question all the assumptions of the way you think that you need to make this thing. So for me, like, do I need to set up a whole podcast system? Do I need to buy a bunch of gear? Whatever. Do I need to, create a whole marketing team? I don't know. So what are those assumptions can I eliminate or not necessary? The Elon Musk example is like, they would always take the cars and do them all the same on assembly line. And his question was like, well, do we really need all those steps on the assembly line? Or could we just like stamp together most of the car in a big machine? And so they did that. He created that technology where they stamp most of the car in one big machine. And now everybody else is copying him because he questioned the assumptions. So you want to do that when you're checking your next job. Like, what are the assumptions that you're making going into it? And are those assumptions valid? Second is do you need the steps that you see in your mind as critical? So you'll think that all these steps are critical. I'm talking to friends of mine when they're talking about their new business and job endeavors, and they've got this laundry list of things they got to do, but none of that's necessarily true. And the more laundry list of things that you think you got to do before you get to an end result, a product or a service, or an on-the-job paycheck, then the more time you're going to waste in the learning curve. And that's the next principle is get something out there, whether it's you as a service provider or a product that you're creating, get it out as fast as you can. Get out super fast, and then see what people don't like about it. This is the critical thing in business and in work. The more you can get your end result. So in a work, you're producing something for someone. Maybe it's a service or a product that you're producing for one customer called your boss. So you want to produce those things as fast as possible, and then get feedback from them. Like, what do they like? What do they didn't like? And then produce it again, tweak it, and produce it again. So you keep doing that over and over again, and then you just go back to and give it a really short amount of time. So just take 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and that's it. And then just be like, okay, this is really working and I'm enjoying it and it has potential or is already making money, and then move on to whatever the next thing is. Either like cut it out if it doesn't feel like it's working, or go deeper in, and then just keep repeating that process, that cycle of questioning your assumptions, questioning your steps in the process, getting something out there, getting feedback, and then streamlining the process. That's the last thing, is you try to streamline whatever your process is, whether that's inside a job or inside a business that you're creating. Now, how does this translate into money? Because I promised that this would be about paying the bills. All of that sounds very businessy and very much like not actually putting cash in your pocket. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit and just say, backtrack isn't the right word. I'm just going to say, if you really pay attention to what people's pains are, every era has its pains. So we're in a high uncertainty dynamic in 2025 December when this video is being made. That creates a certain level of pain in people's life, whether it be financial pain or literally hunger because food's getting more expensive, or an uncertainty, a feeling of anxiety, or things. Those are all pains that are coming up. So whatever your business is, the service that it's providing, it needs to be solving a pain that people have. And I think this is especially important for those of us that really want to do good with our work, because we get focused on the mission of doing good and forget that we actually have to solve specific problems for people in order to make money. So you gotta be really focused on that specific problem that you're solving for people, and I guarantee you will make money. Now you have to be, there's certain psychological things, like there's certain people that I know that I've noticed have, like, you just psychologically hold your value at a lower place. So you have to actually practice viewing your value higher. Now, you don't want to be, there's a funny dynamic of like, one of the most powerful things in the world is to be overconfident. And one of the most dangerous things in the world is to be overconfident. So you want to be overconfident within a guardrail of having some humility practices, something that keeps you in check. If your value, your self-worth is really low, then you want to start going down a path. It's kind of I have imposter syndrome, but over the last 25, 30 years, I really found my self-worth. So I don't struggle with that as much. I have to look very far back to remember what it was like. And I had to consciously step outside of cultural norms, step outside of values that were imposed upon me by, the 80s and 90s male culture that I was in, and find my unique power, my unique value. And that's why I say probably for making money, one of an obtuse lesson that's really actually very important is for you to love yourself more. So new age, so annoying, but it's fucking so true. The more you love yourself, the more you can charge for what you put out there, even if it's crappy. My father was a very successful musician in the Hollywood studio music scene and television and movies. And he would always tell me, he'd work with all these high-level composers and directors and music arrangers, and he'd say, what determines how much money a musician or a composer or those people make is not how good they are. It's how they view themselves. So if they see themselves as super valuable, then they make a lot more money. So that's another critical thing. If your self-worth is low, you've got to bump up your self-worth. And a few quick tips on like how to bump up your self-worth is A, stop trying to fix yourself. B, start trying to find out what you're already powerful and good at. And as a man, which is my experience, all I can talk to, is, as a man, what I needed to do was realize that my power resided not in a traditional male archetype. Like I have some of that, but I got this whole other intellectual, creative, artistic, teacher, nature vibe that just doesn't fit in any of those models. So that has helped me command a higher dollar rate and see higher values coming to me. I'd also recommend a book. We read it when we did our first big house sale in 2020. We read it on a month-long trip, cruising in our camper down in Baja, where we listened to it like a chapter on every leg when we go from place to place, me and my wife and my daughter, but she didn't understand it. She was like 2 at the time. And that's, you're a badass at making money. It was really good. If you just take it in sections, you'll get, that really helped me sort of bump up my courage around asking for more money. And that's basically what the whole book's about, is how do you bump up your courage so that you think you can do it and you can ask for more money. All right, so I hope that has been valuable. Yeah, so you just got to repeat that process over and over again. I got my little, this is cool here. I got a teleprompter that I've created with the phone camera. I love it, man. I'm super amped on it. It's taking my tech to the next level. All right, so I hope that's helped you giving you some tangible tips to find a career or business that fits you and pays the bills. Clarify your values. Work on your strengths and skills, get them, figure out what those pain points are that people have, come up with like 50 ideas, a bunch of ideas and ways that you can solve that. Test that quickly. Try a bunch of different jobs, try a bunch of different business. There's that business term, minimum viable product. Do as many minimum viable products as you can until you land on something that's actually working. And even when you do get a product that you're gonna stick with, you're just constantly reiterating. It reminds me of this, there's a school out there, and there's an example of a kid, like a 6-year-old, and they ask him to create a butterfly, and he draws a little 6-year-old butterfly, and then they just keep getting feedback like, well, just change this here and change that there and change that there, and then over like 50 or 100 iterations, like they teach the kids to do iterations, then this butterfly looked like almost lifelike. So that's what you want to be. You want to be like that little kid that's iterating again and again and again and again and again. Yeah, so I'm just summarizing here. Yeah, and then get your self-confidence up. Dig into your power, your unique power. I can do whole other videos about that if you guys are liking this content. I'll do another one on that. That's it. Have a great day. And comment, like, subscribe. If you're interested in, I am offering some free coaching sessions, and the way the free coaching session works is that as long as you have a good video link with good internet, we'll set up a Zoom call, and then we'll record the Zoom call, and then it'll go live. So I don't, if you want to talk about your deep, dark skeletons in the closet, then that's not for you. You got to be a little bit willing to air some of your dirty laundry. You got to have enough courage to sort of be authentic on camera and be public about that. I'm not a Christian, but I like the Dave Ramsey. I don't know if you ever heard of Dave Ramsey. He does financial advice for people, and he coaches people just on the radio or live, and so that's the kind of thing that I'm doing for free. So if you want paid stuff, we'll do that in private. But free stuff, I'm just creating content to put it out there to help more people, to help you in the process. And then there'll be a link in the description, and we can have a chat via Zoom call to see if it's appropriate for you. All right, have a great day. And yeah, let's make this world a vital place for ourselves, starting in here and out in the world. We can do it. I know it seems impossible these days, but it is not possible. I mean, it's not possible. That was a bad Freudian slip. It is totally possible. There's a lot of people out there saying it's not possible. It's totally possible. And as long as we're working in the direction towards that in our own life, no matter what happens out in the world, we've done our best. And that's what changes the world, is when enough of us don't buy in to the negativity, the negative narrative out there. Negative Nelly, negative Norman, negative Nancy, negative Donald. All right. Ciao.